I do my best. So yeah.
Oh, my stuff.
Good. Yeah, how was your trip? Yeah. I mentioned say hi to you and the Latino meeting. Yeah, I did have to, send an email to the wastewater folks after.
Okay, did you get started, everybody?
Tough crowd and,
Let's see. That's your. Okay, we're gonna get started with the presentation from the county. We're gonna get started with a presentation from the county on the general plan, and then we're waiting for another member will call the meeting to order a little later on. But go ahead with the general plan information.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is April Serpinaut. I'm with the County of Hawaii Planning Department.
Yeah.
Like Chair said, we don't have quorum yet for the actual AC committee, but this meeting, just for the record, has been agendized as both an action committee meeting and a general plan community meeting so that our action committee can also attend. That's the purpose of that. And in the event that they don't have quorum, we can still continue with the general plan part of the presentation and Q&A. So thank you all for your patience. Hopefully that fifth committee member will arrive soon. So I know she's on her way. So tonight, just to get a quick show of hands, I know I see some familiar faces, which is awesome. And I know some of you have either attended a workshop, one of the general plan workshops, or perhaps viewed it online, or even been to one of these other community meetings. So just a quick show of hands, how many of you have seen one of the workshops, either online or in person, or one of the other community meetings?
Oh.
Okay, great. Excellent. So I'm going to do a brief, so this will be a little bit of repeat for those who have done that. So I'm going to do a brief part of the presentation, and then we will open it up for question and answer, and we'll try to address as many people as possible in terms of Q&A. And once we get quorum, I will turn it over to the chair to actually open their meeting, and then we can continue from there. Okay. So let me share screen. Okay, there we go. So can everyone hear okay? Okay, excellent. So we are here tonight to talk about our general plan, and the purpose, just to remind everyone, the purpose of the general plan is an overarching policy guide for the county of Hawaii and all of the different agencies within the county. So it's that umbrella, we'd like to talk about it as that umbrella document, or that overarching high-level policy document that guides all of the other things that happen within the county. So it provides those long-range policies for comprehensive physical, economic, environmental, and also sociocultural well-being of the county and all of the residents who live here. Under the general plan, there's sort of two different avenues that we speak to. One speaks to the regulatory side, and the other is the agency side of the work that the county does. Under the regulatory side, and under the general plan, we also have the community development plans, which many of you are familiar with. They're long-range regional plans that are very specific to the region. Hāmākua has such a plan. There are also special area plans and urban plans, things like the downtown Hilo multimodal plan, things like that are special area plans. And then there are regulatory measures where all of these different plans are really implemented through our county code. And so that happens through our zoning code, our subdivision code, through the tax code and other types of codes, and then administrative rules that help to, administer those codes. And then there's the permits, putting all of that in place. When people come to the planning department or the public works department for a building permit, they apply for those kinds of permits, and then those codes are implemented through that permit process. On the agency side, we have area plans or functional plans or agency plans, are all different types of names for these plans, but they're more specific to the departments and the area of Kuleana that they oversee. So such as a water resource plan or a wastewater plan are very specific to a particular department and that particular service that they provide, same with transportation, parks and rec, and the like. And then how those different plans are implemented are through our budget process, which goes through county council. And so the capital improvements program or the capital budget is boots on the ground, projects on the ground that you see. When you see a roadway getting repaved, or you see a park getting improved or built, a new park that's being developed, things like that, that is all part of our capital budget. Operating budget is how the county itself operates. So it's paying for space, it's paying for computers, for staff, it's paying salaries and things like that. That's our operating budget. So the overall comprehensive review process we'll touch briefly on. We have had 3 general plans in the history of the island. So the first general plan was in 1971, followed by 1989, and then the current general plan, which was originally adopted in 2005, last amended in 2014, if I remember correctly. And then this comprehensive review started in 2015. And what's been happening since then is the initiation in 2015. We did a lot of research and also a lot of community outreach. We had a natural disaster occur, and then we came out in 2019 with a draft policy document, as well as some draft land use policy maps. And so we did another whole big outreach process through that, and then came out again last year with the 2023 draft. Again, a lot more comments, and then this final recommended draft that is out today. Just some of the outreach. This is just a short snapshot of the kind of outreach that we've done. But it's been a lot since the beginning of the process, but it has included technical workshops, community workshops, charrettes, as some people like to call them, things like that. Early on in the stages, we had some of us call them walkabouts and other kind of community workshops that we did. And we also went out to community meetings and things like that. We kept the cabinet abreast and worked with the other departments very closely. We kept the county council updated throughout the entire process. And now we're at the point where we're doing the final workshops and community meetings that will, and all of this information will be transmitted. I'll talk about that in just a minute, to the planning commission. So that's part of the adoption process. So again, we just had, this is a snapshot before having started this 2024 release. A lot of the meetings that we conducted and a lot of the outreach and comments that we have received throughout this process. That does not include what we've most recently received since July 29th of this year. So tonight is the last of our community meetings for this process. But there's still plenty of opportunity and time to provide more input. the public input for the formal part of the process has closed, although we are still getting emails and we're still adding those to the package that we're putting together for planning commission. But how this works is that the planning department will not make any further edits right now. This draft as presented will be presented to or submitted, I should say, to the planning commissions, both planning commissions separately. And then along with all of the comments that we have received, including the comments that we transcribed from our various public meetings, and all of that will be transmitted to the planning commission for their review and deliberation. At those planning commission hearings, those are public hearings, and that is part of a public process. So they will continue to receive testimony and public comments at the planning commission meetings. They have 5 months, once it's submitted to them, which will happen, actually, it's different than this. It's not October 28th, it's October 25th. So once it's submitted to them, they have 5 months from that date to do their deliberations and make a recommendation to the county council. And then that whole package, what we presented plus what planning commission adds to it, that package will then go to the county council for their review and deliberation, I'm sure at multiple meetings. Many of you have visited our website, but it looks a little something like this. On our planning department website, under the general plan comprehensive review, you'll see a list of dates that starts with, I think it starts with background, but the date starts with 2015. And it really outlines the whole chronological process and links to all of the information that has been included in that process, public comments, draft or reports that were considered during this process, resources, things like that. So all of that data and information is on our website. And then many of you are already familiar also with Conveo. The comment period now is closed on Conveo because it takes us a while to take all of that information and turn it into a report to then transmit to planning commission. But the map is still interactive. You can still move around the map, and I can show you that tonight if that's of interest. More than happy to do that. And we are still taking comments at our planning, general plans email. So all of you should have received a handout tonight, and the email is on there. So if you have additional, I know many of you have already submitted comments, and thank you very much for that. But if you have additional comments, you can submit them on our general plan email. Or it can be in writing, you can drop it off at our office, you can mail it to our office, things like that. Oh, the back cannot hear me, is that true?
I can hear you. I can't do this.
Okay, I'll try to speak up a little, but I have a loud outside voice, so I might laugh some people in the front row. But feel free to move up. Also, there's plenty of seats closer to the front. If you don't want to sit in the front row, but feel free to come move up to the front a little bit. So just a quick overview of the vision statement in the plan. One of the things that we really try to honor is all of the work that's been done in community since the last general plan was adopted. And so there are various community development plans, there are area plans that have been done with communities and things like that. And so we have used all of that information and sort of culminated and synthesized the vision statement for this general plan based on all of that information that's been provided. The structure that you'll see in the plan is the vision, as I talked about, and goals. So there's sort of high-reaching goals, but then objectives and guidelines, and particularly policies and actions. So that's where the vision and the goals start to get implemented through those policies and actions, particularly actions. What we'll find in this plan is much more conversation about sustainability principles, about cultural sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. This isn't an effort really, whether you want to use the word sustainability or not, this is really an opportunity for us as an island community to try to be more self-sustaining. If you don't want to use the word climate change or sustainability, I totally respect that, but it's really about being more regenerative. How do we keep more economy within our community and rely less on imports and things like that? How do we support each other in the work that we do and the industries that we have? And also looking for opportunities for more diverse and new types of industries that we might be able to create and have here, something that will be of interest hopefully to our young people and be able to keep our youth on our island, or at least have them come back. If they go off to college, hopefully they will come back. So those are the types of things that are woven throughout this general plan. The overall structure of the plan is these sort of chapter headings and then various information under those. Introduction, we've basically gone through most of that at a very, very high level. There's a lot more data and information in the introduction section. Collaborative biocultural stewardship really speaks to the natural and cultural resources of the island and wanting to honor the natural resources that we have. Adapting to climate change is really about trying to help mitigate and adapt to a lot of the natural disasters and evidence that we have that are happening in our world. It's happening in Florida right now. I have family in Florida, so my heart and mind is certainly in Florida right now with everything that they're going through. Sustainable development really speaks to, again, boots on the ground. A lot of that is the capital type projects or the permits that get issued for building. That's the vertical type construction, be it paving, doesn't feel vertical, but it is. Paving on the streets, utilities, public facilities, such as the place where we are tonight, housing, and then also really looking at integrated systems. So how do we have all of those different pieces and parts collaborate and work together in a more cohesive fashion to be more efficient? And then looking at our economy, again, that regenerative economy, how do we diversify in various areas and support each other as communities, not just in agriculture and food systems, although this is critical. We rely so heavily on bringing our food in. So how can we better support even small farmers and our agricultural community in various ways to help provide more food for us on island? And then also looking at the visitor industry, it's a huge part of our economy, but how do we design our visitor industry in such a way and look for those opportunities to have it more respectful of our people who live here, more attract people who want to visit our island for those special attributes that our island has to provide, and really honor and respect our natural resources and our residential population. And then implementation is a vital piece. And one thing that this plan weaves into it is not just aspects of the planning system and the capital budget, but that monitoring and evaluating. So being able to try to, once this is adopted, to work towards implementing this plan, and then come back and say, okay, how are we doing? Let's evaluate. What have we achieved? Where do we need to adjust? Things like that. I'd also like to mention, because it's come up at a few meetings, just about can this document change, right? And so one of the things to understand is that even after this document is adopted, it can still change. So the 2005 plan was adopted in 2005, but there were amendments in 2006 and 2007, and I don't remember the dates in between, and then the last one I can remember was in 2014. So understanding that there are opportunities for additional changes and amendments throughout, so it is intended to be a living and breathing document. So, Chair, I just have a few more slides to talk about land use, if that's okay, and then I'll turn it over to you to open the meeting. Does that work for you?
Sooner the better. We've got a lot of cards.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So I'll just share a few more things to sort of get us into land use a little bit, and then I'll turn it over.
Sure.
I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll go from there. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So the land use, future land use is really intended to be looking out ahead. So this plan is called 2045, General Plan 2045, because that's sort of the planning horizon that it looks out forward. It doesn't mean that everything in the plan will be implemented by then. It's what we're shooting for. It's what we're planning into the future is why that date is there. And that's what the land use is also looking at. It's high level. It does not change zoning, so I'm gonna repeat that several times tonight, because the questions will arise about zoning and the zoning code. So if you remember the hierarchy of the different regulatory pieces, the zoning code is near the bottom because it's a lot more detailed, and those are rights that you have, entitlements that you have to your property, and whatever your zoning is that you are allowed today, you'd be allowed tomorrow, and when this plan is adopted, this plan does not change zoning. So I just want to make sure we understand that, because that question comes up a lot. But I'm happy to answer more questions about it if that's helpful.
Will there be a Q&A time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
After testimony or before testimony? After testimony? Or just at the end?
I just have, if you signed up, you get a chance for whatever.
Yeah, I just, like, this question is about what she said. I'd love to ask, but I don't.
Yeah, just jot that down, and we'll get to you if it's during or after testimony. I'm happy to take those questions. So the overarching goals for land use have to do with to apply progressive land use strategies incorporating indigenous and contemporary knowledge and place-based practices to direct and manage growth for the health and safety of our community. So for our community is for our residents, for those of us who live here. And all of that sort of filters through some objectives that are in the document that are related to maintaining community character. That's something we heard a lot during the community planning or the community development planning processes, is a lot about community character. Integrating natural systems planning. So how can we better utilize our natural systems and also protect and honor our natural resources? Increasing more equitable and transparent decision-making, and then reducing the impacts of natural hazards. So just really quick, we only made a few changes based on a lot of comments that we received during this process, but also even after the 2005 general plan was adopted. One was just to make some better distinctions with industrial, so that light industrial can be more service type industrial uses that are a little bit more compatible with some commercial uses, whereas heavy industrial typically needs a bit more of a buffer. So having a one-size-fits-all in industrial didn't quite fit the bill. Also with agricultural lands, we just simply changed the name from important ag lands to productive ag. That's because there's a lot of confusion with our state land use system. So the state of Hawaii has basically 3 land use pieces. One is state land use, general plan, and zoning. And so with state land use, they have a whole thing in HRS statute about important ag lands, and it's always been very confusing for people not understanding the difference between state important ag land and county general plan important ag land. So we simply changed the name. So those important ag lands went to what's called productive, which is really what they are. They're productive in nature. And a lot of that data and information was based on some of the UH-ELO studies that have been done. I think there was one in 2010, it was revised in 2015, and then again in 2020. So we're utilizing the best available data on this island to help provide that information. The other piece that we added was a natural level, and the natural under agriculture is really intended for somewhat more passive uses, but most of that natural is ag lands that are in high elevation forested areas. So a lot of those areas have native tree canopy, and we all know that our high elevation forest reserves and the like help to protect our groundwater resources and help recharge our groundwater resources. And so some of those lands have been noted as natural. That does not take away the landowner's right to do agriculture on those lands. So again, I want to be clear about that. It does not change their zoning. It still allows them to do that, but making a little bit different distinction from just productive ag and extensive ag. We heard a lot about that. And then the last one is just simply changing the open designation to recreation so that it's very clear that recreation is really more active type uses and conservation is more passive type uses. And so being clear about those kinds of distinctions. So you'll see this kind of diagram on urban uses in the plan itself. And again, we really borrowed a lot from the CDPs. I think in Hāmākua, we almost exclusively use the CDP to help guide any of the land use changes that were made in the Hāmākua area of the general plan. All of our comments, we look to state land use. So a lot of state land use conservation has been moved from open to conservation in the general plan. Again, that's to honor and be more consistent with the conservation that's already in place under state law. And then a big one is this sort of transition, using rural as more of a transition. That's what it's always been intended as. But hasn't been very well utilized as this transition between urban uses, much smaller, higher density type development, as opposed to larger lot agriculture type uses. And so rural is really intended to be that sort of family ag. There are a lot of all the ag uses are actually allowed in rural, but it's really intended to be smaller ag lots, things like that, that really make that transition between the urban uses and the agricultural uses. And what that looks like island-wide is this is the 2005 general plan. Hopefully my cursor is moving, but not at the same rate as I am. There's a little bit of a lag, I apologize. So you can see here, just a couple more minutes, thank you. So you can see here the ag uses in the 2005, and we've tried to increase that. Also the urban uses, we've tried, and based on also what we've received from the community development plans and the like, to better distinguish the types of urban uses. So urban expansion, for example, allows almost any urban use, high to low. Whereas the high, medium, and low all have very more distinctive elements between each of them. And then agriculture, I already talked about those differences, but kind of what that looks like in sort of shifting some ag to the natural element is conservation went up a bit as we again honored the state conservation land use, and then some of the extensive ag shifted to the natural, and then productive ag, again, we just changed the name from important ag lands to productive ag. And these are some maps, but I'm not going to go through these now. I'm going to turn it over to Chair to ask or have testimony, and then we can do Q&A as you wish.
Okay.
You got to open the meeting first, though.
Okay, we are going to call the meeting to order. Hāmākua action. Pardon? Oh, yep. Okay, we'll now come to order. It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. This meeting.
We may have to put it up close.
No.
Right now.
Okay. The meeting is held in person by interactive conference technology. This meeting will also be recorded on Zoom. As a reminder, per sunshine law, AC members appearing remotely must keep their cameras on and announce anyone who is with them except for minors in their location. Okay, we're going to do a roll call. Vice Chair Mahealani. Colin Keeney. Here. Robert Nishimoto. Here. Brad Kurakawa. Here. And I'm David Meyer. From the planning department, we have April, Cabello, Jessica, and Janice. And do a little housekeeping. Please make sure your cell phones are turned off or on silent mode. If there is anyone here who would like to testify, sign up and take stand up. Please state your name before speaking. You have 3 minutes to provide your testimony, and probably gonna have to try to adhere to that pretty well because we've got a lot of testimony. All of us who are attending here in person, please remember to speak for all camera and microphone so everyone on Zoom can hear. And keep in compliance with sunshine. All testimony and discussion must address the specific agenda item the committee is deliberating. If anyone has new business or anything else to discuss that is not on today's agenda, that can be brought up during agenda item 5. Okay, so committee will now call for statements from the public. As stated in the published agenda, members of the public may provide public testimony regarding any agenda item now or at the time the agenda item is called to order. If there's anyone here who would like to testify, please fill out a sign up if you haven't already. Please state your first and last name and the agenda item you are commenting on. And again, please try to limit it to 3 minutes or so. Okay, so we go ahead with that. I'm just gonna go by. Okay, the lucky winner on top is Corey Hart.
Corey Harden, I'm commenting on the general plan agenda item. First want to thank the planning department staff, tremendous amount of work to put all these drafts together in workshops and so forth. There's many issues I have, but I'll stick to 3. First, I wonder if county council and planning commission will be allowed to make amendments to the plan. It isn't normal procedure, but seems to be justified because planning has not followed normal procedure. For the first draft of the new plan, it was only after urging from the public that planning provided most of the information needed to make informed comments, such as a PDF copy of the draft, a tool to compare maps from the old plan and the new plan, and the rationale for changes from the old plan. And the rationale that was finally provided is not adequate. It doesn't reveal what material from the old plan was left out of the new one. So I wonder if council and planning commission can make amendments. Second, on waste to energy, on quick review, I don't see how concerns that were raised in public comments were addressed in the final draft. And as we all know, past waste to energy proposals have caused tremendous public concern, and the proposals have failed. And last, I wonder if the term NIMBY, meaning not in my backyard, is going to remain in the plan. I was taken aback to see it there. This is a foundational document that's going to be going forward till 2045. It has negative connotations. The plan defines NIMBY as opposition by residents to proposed development in their local area, often due to concerns about potential negative impacts on the environment, property values, and quality of life. So people who want to protect the environment end up getting kind of labeled by that. So again, thanks to planning for all their work.
Yeah, thank you. Kalika? Yes.
Okay, so hi, everybody. Okay, so I wanted to say that I read the plan and I kind of dived into it. So I reject the general plan 2045. I shall not give my consent to accept or implement such a plan. And it's vague, in my opinion. There's a lot of non-transparency. It just says amend. It says, you know, all kinds of things. And one of the things that caught my attention as a part Native Hawaiian, Kanaka Maoli part. If we talk about, you know, our culture and how to protected, but they don't say anything about who's gonna do it. There's no identification of what experts exist today that would have the ability to do that. Let me give you an example. Okay, Maui, kiwi, very rare indigenous Hawaiian bird, 150 of them. So they did a study on them, and 10 of them, actually more than 10, died. They put the very high frequency transmitter bands on their legs. These birds are not even an ounce. I was in shock. They're beautiful. They're beautiful birds. And not even 1 ounce. They put them on, and before they even released them, 3 died. And then they released 7, and 7 were found dead, but the 3 that they found that were alive, guess what? They got rid of those bands, those transmitters were off their legs. Now they're blaming mosquitoes, okay? And so they're gonna kill our indigenous Hawaiian birds very frivolously. There's no in-depth research. There was a research study on it, by the way, by the US Fish and Game and the state of Hawaii DLNR. So there's a 230-page study on the kiwi on Maui, and that's where I found the information. So they're not sharing it with our Native Hawaiians, and I'm pissed as a Native Hawaiian. Because these birds are indigenous and they're very few, and people work hard to even bring 150 to life. And now we're so frivolously want to pass all kinds of things, and in this plan, they talk about there's only 2 areas I saw about our Hawaiian culture and things being protected. 2. There's how many pages are in this book? So how much do you guys care about us Hawaiians? Tell me. So I'm really angry as a Native Hawaiian because if in this 245 plan, I had more things to say. This violates, okay, you are violating this plan, the international laws as Hawaii is under US military occupation since it was in 1893 overthrown. The Hawaiian Kingdom was overthrown, and the evidence is the November 1993 US Public Law 103-150. The US laws do not, let me repeat, do not apply in Hawaii, including Hawaii County. I'm putting you on notice. Okay? But I love you. You guys are great people. You're trying your best to help us. I'm on your team, believe it or not. I want you to be on my team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Roger Christie.
Hey, aloha, everybody. I am Roger Christie. I represent the Hawaii Cannabis THC Ministry. Been in existence since the year 2000 when I was licensed as a cannabis sacrament minister by the Department of Health to legally marry people with cannabis. I testified in Nancy Sally's last year, and I included the testimony I'm going to repeat today. I didn't notice it in the plan. Maybe it got rejected, maybe I missed it. I'd like to see the US Constitution and the Bill of Rights included at the beginning of the plan, so everything that follows comports with the US Constitution. As it stands, I reject the general plan until it includes cannabis hemp as an agricultural economic engine and First Amendment spiritual sacrament. I watched the county, I've been here since 1986. I watched the county destroy a very sustainable economy here. People had backyard cannabis grows. It was pleasure for many, it was problems for others. I got that. However, marijuana eradication was proven to destroy the economy, eradicate cannabis and the people that grew it, and substituted meth and crime, which still exists. It because there was a landmark study that proved this point. Took 4 years to do. When it came in, the county council hid the study that said eradication caused meth and crime. They hid the study and they kept funding eradication until I shut them down in 1999 with a lawsuit. It was unbelievable to watch. Very sad. It was like a population replacement program. Let's get rid of the locals who have wells growing in their backyard and their sunny lanai and substitute new people, kind of like the cover of the new plan, which is the black lava covering the island and a little new green growth coming. The local culture has been harmed severely, and newcomers are moving in. God bless everybody. I reject the UN and globalism and support local ideas and culture. I think cannabis is Hawaii's best, safe, natural, and sustainable economic stimulus. In 120 days, we can have a multi-million-dollar, world-famous cannabis harvest here like we used to. No big surprise. Let's stop pretending cannabis doesn't exist. Let's go and let's grow. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Chris Perosi.
I'm Chris Rose from Mountain View commenting on Agenda 3, Number 1. I think General Plan 2045 is part of the UN Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. There's a global ruling class that creates global problems so they can peddle global solutions that gives them power and wealth while making us serfs. This ruling class owns at least a part of the central banks all around the world. For example, the Federal Reserve is a privately owned central bank of the US. The Federal Reserve's own website says it pays dividends to its shareholders. Also, its income is exempt from taxes except for real estate transactions. That's why on the top of every dollar it says, Federal Reserve Note. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913 and was used to fund both sides of World War I in 1914. That same year in 1913, the federal income tax was created to pay the debt of war. The solution to global war is global governance, so the League of Nations was formed. World War II was a repeat of World War I, so the United Nations was formed. On 9/11, a false flag was done to start the global war on terror. That's why on 9/11, 3 World Trade Center buildings were destroyed in controlled demolitions. Unlike buildings 1 and 2, building 7 fell in a controlled demolition without a plane hitting it. Event 201 done in October 2019 is the building 7 of COVID. Event 201 shows the COVID pandemic was pre-planned and done on purpose. It is still online. It was sponsored by the Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and Johns Hopkins. The Rockefellers are connected to the Gates family and the World Economic Forum. John Rockefeller Sr. started Johns Hopkins School. Posse's NIAID funded the Wuhan lab where the alleged COVID lab leak occurred. Posse's NIAID also funded Ralph Barrett, who patented COVID and its predecessor SARS. Barrett wrote a paper with the Wuhan lab, Fat Lady, Xi Jinping. COVID was like a world war, because most countries went into massive debt to their central banks. The global warming solution is 15-minute cities with the China model surveillance and control. The globalists are using weather weapons to achieve this with clear evidence in Acapulco, Mexico, with unnatural hurricanes. Acapulco was targeted as a smart city. The people there are rebellious and there's not even police, only military. Last year, Hurricane Otis went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 hurricane in less than 24 hours. It hit Acapulco with 165 miles per hour winds. This year, Hurricane John went from tropical storm to a Cat 3 hurricane in 18 hours.
So,
It hit Acapulco, then it went back out to sea, and then hit Acapulco again as a Cat 1-inch zombie hurricane.
I'm sorry, it's just, time is almost up. And I'm just,
That's it.
okay.
3 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did you give us 3 minutes? Thank you.
Millicent Cummings.
This is in reference to agenda item 3, the general plan. Aloha, my name is Melissa. I thank you for your service in protecting our health and safety by guarding against federal overreach and corporate interests that seek to supersede those of your constituents. I have come to this meeting to inform you that the approval of the Hawaii County General Plan of 2025 will constitute collusion with the dictates of the UN, the WHO, and the World Economic Forum, and their unelected officials. Sorry, I can't read my writing. These are global agendas, far exceed their jurisdiction, and do not address our dire local needs, best interests, or authority. The plan, as an offshoot of said agendas, runs contrary to and exceeds the bounds of our protected rights under the Constitution of the United States and the State of Hawaii, the Bill of Rights, and the Hawaii County Charter, to which you have all sworn oaths to uphold. Your approval of this plan would thereby be in breach of the public trust and the oaths you took. Another of many reasons to reject this plan is because it will, in quotes, require all county departments to collaborate with the County Office of Sustainability, Climate Equity, and Resilience, OSCR, as the lead agency to ensure the integration of the county's goal of sustainability, climate resilience, and equity into all county operations and planning initiatives, thereby possibly rendering null and void the powers you all have at the present time, or those of the lead agencies that we already have in place. The corporate interests and outside control measures that permeate both the content and language of this top-down UN plan are in breach of said constitutional rights. The use of deceptive terms like on-site affordable and workforce units, buffer zones, clusters, or smart cities, stakeholders, climate change resilience, etc., reveal the UN's hand in the authorship of Hawaii's general plan. As the authors of the plan, those who would approve such a plan and the plan itself are all beholden to the rule of law. You are hereby informed that to approve this plan will justify our call for your immediate removal from the offices you hold, to be replaced by those who will uphold their oaths. We shall not consent to the approval of any document, anytime, drafted by any individual planning commission or international body that runs contrary to the constitutional law and the protected rights therein for all people at all times. We demand your due diligence and request a continuance of the public comment period. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca Melendez.
Okay. All right. Aloha, I'm Rebecca Melendez. I'm with BigIronSupport.com. So this general plan, page 111, 17.4, land use applications shall identify to me as early as possible any existing or potential active living corridors that should incorporate into the county's open space network, okay? So if this plan goes through and you fill out, if someone fills out a land use application to build something on their property, okay? Get a permit, you will have to identify if your property has an existing or potential active living corridor that should be incorporated into the county open space network. To me, that's taking away people's land, straight up.
says it right there, that should be incorporated into the county's open space land. That needs to be rejected completely. This is wrong. The Constitution and Bill of Rights protected our property, okay? And this, 2024 plan is another one. You know, be able to have the power, you know what I'm saying? Like, that needs to stay with county council, we need checks and balances, right? Please read this, and read precisely, things are not labeled, they're not titled, and the director's asking why more power. Please reject it.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Eric Weiner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Weiner. I've spent my adult life here in agriculture, and I've been here for 45 years. I currently live in Ohio. I want to make two comments on today's plan. One is about ag. April made some statements about promoting self-sufficiency, but I didn't see anything reading the plan that actually did that. You know, back in, and I also want to comment on Plan B. Everybody, we've assumed that the economy is going to be just the way it's been for all these years, but that's, if you look at the facts, you know, the federal government is going into debt at $1 trillion every 100 days. We're at $36 trillion. Next year, the federal government will spend more on interest on that debt than it will on the Department of Defense. FEMA just ran out of money to help the residents of North Carolina. So I just think you know, this plan assumes that everything will be just like it was, and there's no plan B in here. So we really ought to think of that and put that in this plan, which brings me back to ag and self-sufficiency. Reading the specifics of the plan, I didn't see anything that encouraged people to grow their own food. Back in World War II, when the residents here were self-sufficient, they grew their own food. They went into town to get coffee and maybe some flour and some sugar, but they traded and they grew their own food. They weren't growing food for money. They were growing food to help their community members. All I know is the law just passed last year that no one knew about until they got a notice from the tax bureau that said that their ag taxes and the exemptions that they've been enjoying on their ag property for self-sufficiency will no longer apply. So, you know, I think that should be front and center on this plan, is how this island should grow food for food's sake and security, not for money. Thank you very much.
Veterans Day.
My name is Kevin Hill, commenting on the same topic, of course. I think my first comment is that I think everyone should object. So this came out 2019 was the last version. We had this for 4 months to review since July. It says on the cover July. And we have serious issues with the general plan.
2023.
Hmm?
2023, last year was the last draft.
Last draft, 2023. So Eric mentioned the property tax thing. I think that pretty well woke a lot of us up. That something happened a year ago that's gonna result in, like all over the country, 30–40% increases all over the country. We'll see what it is in Hawaii, but 30–40% on average increases in property taxes. That's not sustainable for us. Right? That's not helpful for us. That's not in the best interest of the people that live on the islands. We're all going through, since 2019, this scamdemic thing with COVID, right? We've had lockdowns, we've had massive economic impact. We have the price of food doubling in our stores. And the county council has the audacity to say we should pay more taxes.
Yeah.
I got an issue with that. I think everybody should have an issue with that. We have a crisis here of people not being heard. We don't feel like we're being heard. Not that they haven't met the deadlines, it hasn't been out there. I only got my copy of the general plan about a month ago, right, to review. So it was available on the PDF in July, I think same time as that was. And yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm trying to feed my family too. And a lot of us are working our butts off trying to, but we have major issues. And I'm offended that our input and all the input since July. I get it that there's been input allowed prior to this time. My input hasn't been allowed. This directly affects my life. It affects everybody in here. And if all of these public hearings since July have no impact on the final general plan, what the hell are we doing?
That's right.
What are we doing? Somebody already suggested it. I move that there be an extension of this time for public input and that other versions, other plans be seriously considered. Because a lot's happened since 2015. A lot's happened since 2015, as I mentioned, right? What is our plan B when everything else implodes? When, as some people have mentioned, this, I told you 30–40% increase across the nation. There's a coordinated plan for this stuff to be happening. And it's not, I don't know if you take credit for authoring this document or not. But it doesn't sound like it was authored here. At least the majority of it sounds a lot like Montana's general plan, Idaho's general plans all over the country. And that's not okay. The global interests are dictating what happens, what's best for us in Hawaii. We need our time to have input and to have meaningful input on this plan, please. Like, we shouldn't have to say, please, this is we the people, all the power comes from the people. And there's a crisis of our being heard. That the property tax increase by county council happened a year ago, and I heard about it when Eric heard about it, and I showed up to hear them tell me how I can conform to all these new restrictions on my land and impact and how I can stay in compliance is offensive to me. So I wrote a little petition, I submit mine in writing. If you agree with my comments, you can read the petition and sign, but we need time to have meaningful input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Michelle Martin.
Hello, I'm Michelle Melinda. So I went into and spoke with April, brought her a 3-page letter and added all of the areas that I was very concerned with. One being the page 118, reduce vehicle miles traveled. Now, you told me that this isn't going to take away from people's rights, but reduce vehicle miles traveled. You can't, we have a right to travel as part of the Constitution, and this is in our general plan, telling people that you're going to reduce their miles traveled. That's very concerning. The other thing is incentivize private land management practices that protect and enhance natural resources. So you're telling us that you're going to, so again, this is about the possibility that you're taking people's land. You don't tell us exactly, you know, where you're going to be doing this. Is this going to be private? Is this going to be part of the what the county council already has? There's other things in here that are also extremely concerning, and partly it is about climate change. Okay, I want to know which one of you has researched climate change, regardless of the fact that what is being said by the mainstream media. Did you know that almost 2,000 credentialed scientists, meteorologists, climatologists, geologists from around the world have signed a world declaration that you can look up at World Declaration. Excuse me, if you want on the website, I'll tell you later. It literally states there is no climate danger. Doctor, there's no climate danger. Where's the water coming up? Is Hilo underwater right now? And then you're talking about the fact that this hurricane, did you know that there's a patent for a hurricane direct that actually moves hurricanes and tornadoes, and it is under US patent 2020. I have it here. It's a US patent that literally states it can control the weather. There has been a Weather Modification Act of 1976. They've been able to control the weather since the Vietnam War, since the 60s. In fact, President Lyndon Johnson actually spoke at the University of Texas, and he was proud. He said, yes, we can control the weather. If we can control the weather, we can control the world, was his exact words. And so this hurricane, which is insane that it flooded a mountain town. Then we have Milton coming that is on steroids, this hurricane that's on steroids, moving in a direction that is literally has never moved before. Then we have Maui, that was ridiculous. That was an attack on the people, when the people burn from the inside out, and you can recognize a human body that is not burning. When the trees stay standing, but a car is melted. When the entire home is disintegrated into nothing but the plastic trash can and the plastic doghouse and the plastic playground is still there, fully intact. How is that normal? Can you please look deeper? I'm happy to give you this book. This is my book. And this has also climatologist David Dilley, who was actually a meteorologist, 70 years, meteorologist, worked for the US Navy. And he says the Milankovitch cycle, we were 8,000 years ago, we were closer to the sun. 8,000 years ago, the earth is cooling down. And if you want to know why this is happening, I will just finish up with this last statement. The reason why this is happening is because the stakeholders that run this country are invested in renewable energy. This is, I want a second or third or fourth. Do not put this plan through, because this is not written by anybody on Big Island. And honestly, April, I'd like to know where you're from and you wrote this, because are you from Big Island? How long have you lived here?
Thank you. Patty Russo.
Aloha. Aloha, my name is Patty. So I only recently found out about this general plan and read the final draft online. I was really disappointed that only a handful of people commented from our island of about 200,000 residents, which shows very little awareness. And why isn't this room full? That's my question. I'm all for self-sufficiency, food security, and taking care of the Aina. But I do not consent to this plan, as it's just a few of you who are unelected making plans for all of us. This is the Hawaii County General Plan, but words used like cluster, stakeholder, or sustainable are also used by United Nations Agenda 21 or 2030 and other general plans across the mainland and the world in lockstep. Both, and I thought this was a non-binding agreement, by the way. Goals such as seek to acquire land and incentivize compliance through real property taxes, for example, are sneaking communist UN global governance to Hawaii, where the government owns all the land And propaganda and taxes are used to manipulate our behavior, hiding in a go-green box. This means our local government is no longer working for we the people, but working for the UN. Let's educate ourselves on climate change by weather modification and geoengineering. These are real, you can look them up online or read Michelle's book. If this goes through as it is, then as the World Economic Forum said in 2016, you will own nothing and be happy. Really? Thank you.
Jim.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Wagner. I have a general statement here for the general plan altogether. I found information online that our current Big Island mayor is a member of the ECLI. I mean, people have heard that. It's ICLEI. It means International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives. So the I stands for international. So that is not local elected. And so that means that this would indicate that the dictated policies of the outside non-locally elected entity is dictating to our council here the global UN agenda and being adapted or implemented at a state, local, and county levels. People are now becoming aware and being hurt financially and emotionally by this plan. And this plan is unconstitutional, and in my opinion. This plan should be rejected in its entirety, and should you consider making plans, not come up with your own organic,
We'll help.
Oh, yes.
local based plan for our island. The development of more and more unfunded liabilities, as in the initiatives being implemented, is going to be costing taxpayers a burden on money and taxation. This should not be your excuse to raise more taxes. I reject this plan and reject your usurpation of our local council. You have been compromised. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Pam Elders on Zoom.
Thank you. Again, my name is Pam Elders. And I think we need some fact checking here and for the public testimony, that would be great. I have a question or a comment about the definition of sustainability, which is on page 32 of the document. And it's one of the bullet points under the definition of sustainability is that it strikes a balance among economic, social, and community and environmental priorities. And being a person concerned about environment, I'm wondering how this balance is calculated. Is there a practical tool that you use to establish that balance? I've seen some formulas for that give, voice to environmental concerns and kind of balance, environmental sustainability. So I'm wondering, the devil is in the details. That's the thing about these plans. It's very general. When you get down to stuff, people often, I didn't know it meant that. So I'm just wondering how you figure that out, and maybe after my time you can address that. The other thing is that I live in Lapahoehoe, and on page 92, it talks about, there's a thing that, a category of traditional neighborhood character guidelines. And an example of a location was Laupahoehoe. And as I was reading the characteristics, they were nothing like that reminded me of my own community. Or what I was very involved in the community development planning process. And I think, the overwhelming sentiment about that was, for at least for the Laupahoehoe area, was to retain the rural character of the community. And I just wasn't seeing that in the traditional neighborhood character guidelines as they might be applied to Laupahoehoe. For example, it listed junior department stores. I don't even know what that is. So, I'm concerned about honoring the hard work that people did in that community development process and their desire to maintain the rural aspect of the community. And I'm not really seeing that. And yeah, so that's my public comment. Also, I have a concern about, I think when you lost the connection, the comments in the chat were lost. So or at least they're not here now. So I'm wondering if you've permanently lost them. So if you could figure that out, respond to that as well, I'd appreciate it. And I want to say I appreciate the hard work that you put into this plan. I know a lot of thought and effort went into it, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone want to respond to your question?
I think you should just continue with
Okay.
public testimony and then we'll,
Or?
yeah. Give everybody the opportunity.
Michael Don.
Hello. Thank you. It's good to see everybody here. This is what democracy looks like. And I'm Michael Tibana. I'm Home Gardens up in Hākālau, and I represent the Hākālau Farmers Market. And just recently, this year, Governor Green put out a desire for half of the food eaten in Hawaii comes from Hawaii by 2035. And us farmers would love to do that. We would love to support that. We'd love to grow food. We just need the government to get out of the way. Yeah. And then we'll do it. And keep it simple. Okay, keep the plan simple. All right. It's really hard right now to keep things simple with the 250-page general plan with Heather Kimball's 3 new bills, with the county council, with the revenue department raising our taxes, dedicated ag by September 1st. And with the new UN amendments coming to the building department in January, which is going to really change how we build things here. And it's going to be totally not normal for Hawaii to build here. All your wood is going to have to be non-combustible wood and so on. It's just amazing. You don't need the UN. So, and this is just getting started. Now I feel like the farmers need a lawyer just to sort out all this simplicity, and it's driving us into poverty. So I'm confused, feel under attack. The one thing I know for sure, it's time to overgrow the government. April, I saw in your slide presentation that you had ag and food systems tied together with the visitor industry, which to me would be ag tourism. And so we need people to come stay here instead of coming over from the resorts. We need the permits for the bed and breakfast. About a quarter of all of our industry for the farmer here in our local markets comes from these people staying locally. here, if we want to teach a class, if we want people to come visit, if we want visitor industry, we need some places for them to come visit. And ag tourism is a way that the farmers get a little bit of financial boost to keep up with these changing building codes. Zoning, natural land is conservation land to me. And that's that whole part is in the general plan, is overreach of the government and equitable decision making. We know how decisions are made when everything we say is kind of shoved aside, and the county council, the mayor's office, all over the country just rubber stamp. There's things that comes from higher ups. William Europe.
Good evening, aloha. My name is William Muir. And I have, first of all, I want to thank all of you gentlemen and ladies that have worked on this plan. It is very thorough, very complete, and a lot of good work has been done. I think that all of us in this room can agree on a lot of what's in this plan. This is what we all want. We want a more livable place. We want less expenses, lower taxes, and we want to work together with government. I have three comments I'd like you to consider adding to the plan. And the first one is there should be a section under the introduction, something like public-private partnership that talks about existing property rights. I really appreciate you sharing that if you have an existing property that's zoned a certain way, that you can keep doing what you're doing. I think that would take a lot of the charge out of people's perception that this is some kind of a thing that came out of the UN, which we all know, the UN's been talking about this our whole lives. I mean, the Club of Rome, I was, 50 years ago in college in a technology survival in the year 2000 with the limits to growth. So we all know that we need to reduce our expenses and different things, but nobody wants to be told how to live. So that would be the most important thing to add. There's a section that talks about, the Hawaiian Kingdom's property rights, the United States, property rights in the Bill of Rights, and say that, hey, don't worry about it, you've got some recourse, there's due process, because this is a general plan. And, most of us are gonna be gone while this thing continues to be implemented. And other people that come after us are gonna look at this and say, well, we're gonna change the zoning here because we can, it's in the general plan. That was number one. Number two is, I'd like to see the idea and the word equity stricken from this plan. And I have friends all over this country and world. We're all behind diversity, inclusion, all of these things. But when you start talking about equity, it's antithetical to meritocracy. People who I know, and I'm a farmer, I'm working with families doing freeze-dried food, we're working our butts off, right? And the people that work for a living in this community are the people that need to be supported. So those are the things that they need. When you start talking about equity, it's like, well, how can you do equity? It's a gray area, right? And the third comment I have that I think should be looked at in here is there should be some comment made about if there are negative health consequences for microwave radiation, which has to do with when you're building urban areas, they're now blanketed with 4G and 4G LTE. And 5G is not as bad as 4G and 4G LTE, but we all have cell phones, right? So we've all kind of given our consent that we want to have this ability with Wi-Fi. But the future for some people who are hyper-electrosensitive is 2G and 3G talk and text only. So there's no real comment about, at least let's look into if there are microwave radiation effects that are mal-affecting people. That's something that should be considered as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, Michelle Rivas.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Michelle Prevost, and I oppose this bill in its entirety. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My message to you is short, but not so sweet. I am here to issue a warning to you all as government officials and employees. The time is coming when you will be held accountable for your actions.
Yeah.
Whether they be Pono actions or crimes against humanity is your choice. I was born in 1955, so I have seen over the years how our rights have been taken away. We must stand for freedom to choose. Remember that taking people's rights away from them creates suffering. That is crimes against humanity. Please listen to the kind people who are pointing out all the flaws in this bill and take the action needed. I reject the UN agenda. You have been warned. Mahalo for listening. Aloha, and may God Goddess bless you all.
Next we have Fran.
Hi, my name is Fran Cobb. I have a lot of questions. I would like the council to define the term stakeholder. Because it seems like outside stakeholders are determining and changing our quality of life. It seems like the people who live here do not have a say in their quality of life. As citizens, do we get to have a back and forth dialogue regarding what the county is presenting? Who are the stakeholders that are presenting these plans to the country or to the county? And what happened to the idea of private property in the Constitution? Living on an island with limited resources, we should be focused on self-sufficiency, growing our own food, sustainability with agriculture and animal husbandry. I'm concerned about all the regulations related to small farms, and the regulations tend to put a ceiling on upward mobility. So it just seems like the pressure is coming from above to squeeze out any creativity or self-sufficiency. Is that what you intend?
Okay, next we have Megan Isaac.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Megan Isaac and I live in Newlands. And I have legal information to provide you. This is an affidavit document that several county officials will be receiving tomorrow, and there will be a number of posted entries on it. And it reads like this. Oh gosh, I forgot my glasses. Hang on a second. A little louder.
Yeah.
Louder. Thank you. We hereby submit this joint affidavit to address breaches of public trust by Hawaii County officials, especially you, Ms. Brescia Savellis. If I'm saying that wrong, I will learn the correct pronunciation. Deputy Director of Research and Development and Mayor Mitch Roth concerning the publication and promotion of the final draft of the General Plan 2045. These officials have violated public trust by concealing critical information and misleading the public regarding their involvement with international partnerships promoting smart cities. And I know that that's something I've heard denied by planning officials. Factual background. A public meeting of August 24th, 2023. On August 24th, 2023, during a public briefing led by Mayor Mitch Roth, a member of the public inquired about the county's stance on smart cities. Mayor Roth responded that he did not know what a smart city was and deferred the question to you, Ms. Savellis, who also denied any knowledge of smart cities. 2 days later, on August 26, 2023, after the public meeting, the Office of the Mayor released a press statement announcing a partnership with ICLE, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, and the initiation of a sister city relationship between Hilo and Fortaleza, Brazil. ICLE is internationally recognized for its role in planning and implementing smart city initiatives. Cities Forward program. On September 26th, exactly 1 month later, you attended a kickoff meeting for Cities Forward program in Mexico City. At this meeting, you were paired with Luciana Loro, Secretary of Planning and Environment of Fortaleza, Brazil. Fortaleza is in proximity to a developing smart city as documented by the Planet Smart City Initiative, which has partnered with ICLE. Despite these connections, neither Mayor Roth nor you disclosed these developments at the August 24th public meeting. Legal breaches. Violation of public trust. Hawaii County Charter, Section 1310. The Hawaii County Charter requires that public officers and employees conduct themselves in a manner that maintains the public trust. The failure to disclose critical information regarding the county's involvement with ICLE and the Smart City initiatives constitutes a breach of public trust, as it denied the community the ability to engage in a transparent and informed consultation process for the general plan 2045. There's also potentially a breach of sunshine law. The Hawaii revised statutes require that government actions be conducted in an open and transparent manner. The failure to disclose the ICLE partnership and the timing of meetings that limited public participation violates Hawaii's sunshine law, which ensures public access to government processes and decision making. The failure to make information public, as articulated in the sunshine law, implies that if the partnership or planning initiatives were already underway and not properly disclosed to the public before or during the meeting, it could be grounds for a breach of transparency obligations. Finally, deceptive practices in government.
Thank you very much.
I think I should be given extra time because I'm giving you legal information and
I
it
think
pertains
this
to,
information
it pertains to your legal obligations.
Excuse me,
It's
but
not our.
it needs,
I'm addressing.
it needs to go directly to the county office.
I'm addressing this body here because I'm informing them of their liability if they continue with this plan.
You really should deliver that to the county. Thank you very much.
Well, is there somebody else that wants to read the rest of this document who hasn't spoken? Well, hello.
I'm gonna check on Zoom, see if there's anyone else that wants to testify now.
It's not Frisha. I know who Frisha is.
Thank you.
I know who Frisha is. Zach, you haven't testified. Would you like to come and read the rest of this document? It needs to be entered into the public record. This is a matter of legal concern to the community. Thank you.
Well, the next person will have 3 minutes on.
Yes, he's gonna read it.
Was there anyone else on Zoom that wished to testify? Looks like they only have.
And just to clarify, there's a clear chain of command between smart cities just outside of.
I'm sorry, your time was up. Thank you.
Just outside of Fortaleza, Brazil, there's a smart city being installed, and that's our partner city.
Okay, we might just be moving on there. So that pretty much ends the portion of the meeting for public testimony on this subject, so we're gonna be moving on. We have a much longer agenda to get through tonight. So thank you very much for your
No,
participation.
what form?
The
What's the
question-
time?
There were a bunch of questions that I'd love to hear some responses to the question. I have a couple. Can we do that while we're still on this topic? Okay, a little bit of maybe.
Question and answer.
Q&A.
Trying to see where it said question and answer period. 3 months.
I'm presenting a copy of this document to Ava Sujanant.
There, I noticed at the, for the meeting and others, that there was always seemed to be a question and answer period, which I think is instrumental, to achieve, clarity.
Well, just a whole bunch of people made a motion and say we need to stop this whole thing, and it's gonna keep going forward all the way, then we have to try to stop it at the county council. It's like, it shouldn't get that far. We don't trust our county council. Many of us don't. I mean, they just gave us
We certainly don't have word advice.
But we
Way beyond our time to advise. So.
So you're saying there's no way to stop it here? Who dictates to us that our public testimony is meaningless and that we can't
Well,
say,
we just
no,
don't-
it needs to stop?
We just took your public testimony. It's on the record.
Yeah, my public testimony is on the record. I'm just saying, why are we powerless in this room? We're all saying, well, not all of us, many of us are saying it needs to stop.
I feel
we make it
powerless
stop?
myself in this room sometimes. It's just something that happens when you deal with public things. Gonna go on the record for the county. I'm just chairman of this 4-leaf committee that deals with Hāmākua. I really have no idea exactly where the testimony is.
Right, well, we're out here showing this is our opportunity to give testimony, and we're feeling like we're.
There's more opportunities to get testimony.
And that's what you said. So if I can ask.
Chair, just to answer that question really quick, and then I'll turn it back over to you. As I said in the beginning of the start of this event tonight, is that all of the public testimony, both written and verbal, will be presented to the planning commission, which will then also move to the county council. So all of this information that we have received, be it in writing, on email, letter in the mail, verbally at these events such as tonight, will be presented to the planning commission, and then that will move on to the county council for their consideration. Thank you.
Yes, yes, just one point of clarification. It's my understanding, from listening to several of the county council meetings, particularly, in relation to Judge France, making testimony before the, council, that the way that this is going to go is that, the final draft, which has been presented to the public and now soon will be presented to the commission, is the final draft. The commission will be able to make comments on the draft, and then those comments and the public comments will be sent to the county council. And there is a bill before county council at the present time, Bill 181, which has proposed that the county council will be able to make amendment to the general plan that has been presented to them. So it's not clear whether that is going to pass or not. It's presently being considered, I guess, at the next meeting of the county council. If that bill passes the county council, then that will not apply to the current general plan. The ability for the county council to make amendment to this plan. But what will happen will be, if the county council has concerns about some element of the general plan, the county council will have to vote against ratification of the plan.
In which case, the plan will go back to the planning department. And considerations will be made, about what kind of changes might be able to be made in the plan that would satisfy the county council. Is that generally, what is going to
The
happen?
first half was accurate, that that will go through the planning commission and then the county council. What county council does with Bill 181 is up to county council, and so you, me, nobody in this room can predict or try to make any assumptions about what bill county council may or may not adopt and how that will affect what they can and cannot do with the general plan. So that's up to the county council to make that determination. So I would not presume that they cannot make changes if it's adopted, and I would not presume that they can make changes if it's adopted. It depends on what's adopted in that bill. So the language in the bill and how it moves forward through the process is what it is, and that's out of our hands. It's with the county council, and so. Thank you.
That's a question for me.
Does that sort of clarify for you where the process is and where it's going?
That part is more clear. I mean, it says that we're powerless now, that our voice has no impact now, that all of our input is just gonna get lumped in together with somebody to maybe consider or not consider. But what I've heard several people say is, let's kick this down the road. We want more time. We want our input to be meaningful, not just thrown into a box that maybe some way the director might look at. I don't mean to be, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't mean to be coy, but that's how I feel. I feel like we're not being listened to. And now we woke us up. We're awake. We're here. We want to give input. We want to be heard. We want this to be a successful plan that works for all of us. Really do. I mean, I acknowledge it's a hell of a lot of work, that general plan. But the objections that I heard today, those are freaking showstoppers, right? They're showstoppers. They got to get in. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I agree with most of you. Some of you, and this is just me probably speaking out of turn, but I feel very moved to speak tonight. A lot of the comments that you guys are making towards here, we're just like you. We're on your team. We volunteer. You know, so, however, if you guys feel like your voice is as important, or there needs to be more voices, we have seats over there. There are seats over here, so you guys can you guys can talk to Jessica, and she can nomination, whatever needs to be done. That's how you guys can get involved. Okay, I was getting a little fussy because I felt like a lot of it was directed to me. Heather sitting right there, she represents Hāmākua. So if we have a problem, that's where it goes. We're here to listen to you guys and to fight for you guys, not to fight with you guys. Okay? However, this is the biggest meeting that I've ever been in a year. And we've been talking about this general plan for a long time, but this is what usually happens, right? When it comes down to the end, then it's like, oh my gosh, I have something to say. Yes, it's right, me too, because I just got mine tonight. But however, I do agree with a lot of you guys, because a lot of us here are ag. A lot of us here have full-time jobs. You know, so I just hope that the next time you guys go to a meeting like this, you are more compassionate to those of us who are sitting here.
Thank you for saying that.
Because we're here for you guys. Like, I can convey to Heather about it at every meeting. Hey, remember this starts with that? So that way in our planning, when we're planning about stuff to talk about, we know what's important for the community.
Right. And what, I'm sorry to speak and tell them the same thing, but what I heard is we don't like it, it has to stop.
Right.
And I don't want to wait until the planning commission, I don't want to wait until county council, I don't want to wait until Heather changes her mind, or however we put a new bill forward or whatever. We want it to stop, we wanted to know that our end was meaningful. Because it's a big deal, everybody shared here, I didn't hear anything. I mean, maybe there's some facts that are not exactly right, but it's a big document to try to process and to assimilate. But everything I heard here, a lot of repetition saying the same thing. Like, so don't tell me that we come to this meeting with all of us here, we are the people, you're the people, we're the people, we're saying, no. You don't want it in its current condition, if we need, if, whatever the process is to say no, I wanna say no, not to the next step, not to the step after that, I wanna say no right now, and let's put a break on this sucker.
Yes.
And let's, Eric is an amazing resource on the agricultural side, I mean, a lot of people have a lot, and I don't hear any of his monopoly in that plan. And I want his monopoly in the plan, I say, I agree with Eric.
Uncle is a ocean guy, some of his monopoly didn't get in there too, so like, I feel like there's a lot of things that you don't.
Yeah, so my question is, come down to the correct, how do we shut it down, like, I mean, I don't wanna wait, I wanna shut it down, how do I shut it down, right, like, yeah, so, I don't know where you're at.
People being notified of breach of law that's happened and breach of public trust, because Mayor Hart stated 2 days before he signed a contract with an agency that promotes smart cities, that he didn't know what a smart city was.
Right.
Well, she's got a lot to answer for, and so does Ms. Cabello, who went to Mexico City for an E-Play conference 1 month exactly after that conference. was
Okay, so I mahalo you, and I hear that you're giving that affidavit to them, which is the place that it belongs.
And everybody in the room deserves to know that, because it's a breach of public trust, and it reflects deceit that is being practiced on the public.
Right.
And we should be very upset about that.
We hear you.
Because people are commenting that this document fundamentally violates constitutional rights. So there's not editing that, it's not fixing it, it demonstrates that the entire document is tainted.
But how does that shut down the
And-
general plan?
And excuse me, there's one other point of order that's very important. There's no legal committee. And that is a failure of the lighting department. There was no Hilo plan. There was no Hilo plan, so Hilo residents have not had representation.
What they call it, the local plan,
I mean,
there was never one.
The CDP was never.
Well, there's nobody that sits on the CDP and Hilo, that's why, right?
There's no
It
more
was never
already
created.
developed. Community development plans,
And
but they should have,
people-
I don't.
Okay, so what Heather is saying is that, what Heather is saying is that they don't have one because it's already developed.
No, it hasn't been created, and last week in Hāmākua, April addressed us. And she said the reason is because the council member never provided the funds. And several people at that meeting took issue with that being a reason, because it doesn't really cost money to get people together, ready to talk. So that's
So-
particularly a question of
Yes.
lack of representation.
I'd just like to move that we stick to Hāmākua, we
Yes.
still have stuff on our agenda, and I'd like to move on, because we have heard you, thank you.
Yes, we do still have a long agenda, all your, you know, I think you've heard what the options are, it's you go to the council and talk to them. You know, it's, at this point, that's where the power is.
Well, can we just document that, I mean, we could take a movement right here and then we could go on, right? But if I can be so audacious to say I move that this plan be put on hold, have additional time to public input, and then we have real other alternatives to be taken into consideration. And that we all need to agree that. And we document it and put it in writing.
Well, you guys can do that, but.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I move.
2, 4, is it?
All in
Okay,
favor? Just, all in favor, say aye. Objecting, say no.
okay, thank you very much, I mean, we'd love to have a crowd like this every time, and then we might know what to do with it, but we usually have 1 or 2 people, so,
Thank you. Great job.
thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on now, the action committee is gonna look at, whether we have any updates on, fire preparedness and public access signs and.
No update at this time. Granted, how important that issue is, but.
We can't hear you.
More time. Yes, there's no update on the fire preparedness, issue right now.
Okay, then, Robert, do you have anything new on COVID research?
Hello, my name is Armand. From Norway. I'm directing my questions to planning people up there. I want you to look at map number 19. That map talks about marine managed area, you talk about forest reserve, you make mention about natural resources. Will you explain to me, how do you connect with agency? Is this your responsibility as a planning department to do with marine managed area? It's always been a challenge as a citizen, because when I go to the county planning department, I was always told our Juliana ends at the high tide mark, so why do you put marine managed area? If this is your interest, can you tell me what agency or what group makes that connection?
Could you tell me which map you're looking at again, please, so I can just have my eyes on this?
Map 19.
Yeah, so that is under state, which it notes DAR after that, and that's where that data was received. That's really just informational for the purposes of the map and looking to natural resources.
So my
You're correct in that the county does not have jurisdiction over those marine managed areas.
So why put it in here then? Because I'm asking you a question. Who in your department connects to those state agencies? Do you have anyone I can talk to? Because let me tell you my dilemma. There was a development in Illinois with a fabulous Long Island hotel. I go there and I said, gee, what's gonna happen to the ocean? That's not my Juliana. We don't read that stuff. So the question is, if that's not a planning department, so could you tell me why you have this here and help us figure out who do I need to talk to that can connect to the state agencies? You talk about natural resources, but if you have no manageability, so why are you mentioning here? And if you do, seems like you're bought into this whole idea. So is there anyone you have in the planning department, or maybe leave it to someone in the mayor's office? You know, who can I come concerned? Because all I get is, it's not my Juliana, so what's happening? I have the same beef with the state too, but it's not only you, but again, your master plan talks about marine management. Okay, if that's the case, then who manages it in your department? It's not your Juliana, then who is it? So is there somebody in your department who I can knock on their door to make that connection?
So DNR.
Illinois is not a county agency. I'm asking who in a county.
So we do participate in a number of different agencies and groups. So we do have a policy, for example, that speaks to maintaining participation in groups such as the Ocean Resources Management plan team, which is a statewide team that all the counties and other state agencies also participate in.
Do you have a county representative or
Yes.
who is that?
Myself, I have another planner who's on that group, actually two planners that also participate. They have different levels of conversations.
So can I be able to come to ask you those questions, or are you, I can talk to you?
So you can talk to me anytime.
So I would appreciate you made those things aware, because I work with the Illinois, and that's always been my frustration. Islanders think about Hāmākua, but governance totally conflicts with that thinking. So the question is, then it gets stopped. So where do we go? So
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
One of the things that we can do, and I know you're already aware of, is things like watershed management plans and things like that. We know, especially on a mountain or a collection of numerous mountains, that what we do on the land affects our nearshore waters and beyond. So we know that happens, right? And so having things like watershed management plans and working with the Department of Public Works on their drainage codes and things like that, clearing codes and all of that, those are all pieces, and various pieces of that are actually addressed in the general plan in a couple of different areas. Some of it's in land use, some of it's in biocultural stewardship. So I think that's really the connection that we like to try to make, and you're right, it's very common that if it's happening in the water, not my Kuleana. But those of us who are planners who really understand that connection, we take that to heart.
I disagree with you, but that's another issue.
Okay, understood. And I appreciate that, and I'm happy to talk with you about, some of the groups that we participate in and how that might affect this conversation and kind of get down to the root of where your concerns are and what your desires are. So I would love to hear more about that.
Well, one more. I know Heather and I talked about your office called Oscar, it's not your office, it's the mayor's office. I make attempts to say, how can I coordinate this? I got a happy handshake and that's the end of it. So is Oscar operational? Is it not operational? Excuse I get, it's an office of one. So the point is, it's not your office, but again, this is the disconnect.
Understood.
I grew up on legal property. I'm a victim of sugar planted. I know what's happening. And this is kind of why I sit on this. I'm not a planner. I'm very myopic. I don't look at plans if I don't understand. But again, I'd like to speak for Hāmākua residents because fishing and coastal health really is about sustainability. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess the question for the committee is, it's almost 7 o'clock. Are we gonna move on to any of these other items that we think we need to talk about tonight? Or should we just move them on to the next?
Actually, these bills are.
Next meeting. Okay. So, let's see. So the next one would be the proposed transient accommodations rental code amendment. Any discussion on that?
We have a comment.
Yeah, just around, actually asking the committee right now.
I don't know what it is.
Well, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it did pass, right? Which one passed? 123. 123, sorry, that's the time.
That's the ADU though. I'm happy to give an overview of the package. If that's what. Or we can wait till next time. It's not gonna be heard again until November.
Until November?
November 7th, I think, whatever the Tuesday is that first week, it's still in committee.
Okay, well, we know that was need for after that.
Yeah.
So we'll go if we work for the order.
Yeah, 121, 122 are gonna be heard again on the first Tuesday of November.
Okay.
So I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
We know, yeah, this question I have is how will more transient accommodation rentals reduce the inflationary pressure ours already have on long-term rentals? So it's gonna be allowing one.
So, okay, there's a lot, so, and that statement. Kind of,
Yeah, that's.
would you like me to give the full story? I
Yeah,
feel like I
sure.
should. I feel like I should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We also need to open testimony if this is going to be part of the discussion, we need to allow testimony on this.
Oh.
On this subject as well.
You're right. That's.
Okay, let me okay, so there's a package of 3 bills, 121, 122, and 123. 121 is an amendment to the short-term vacation rental code. That is still in committee and it hasn't passed through to council yet. So every bill gets 3 readings, 1 in committee and then a minimum of 2 in council. Sometimes they get more. The TAR bill has been in the council committee since early this year, January. 121, in essence, says that if it is your primary residence, you live on the property, you can start a short-term vacation rental there at any time. Because we recognize that for a lot of folks, being able to rent out a bedroom for term is a way to make ends meet and to stay in their home. So if it's your primary residence anywhere, the unhosted rentals, of course, are already restricted by Bill 108. This bill in its current form doesn't change anything with respect to unhosted rentals. They're only still permitted in the resort zones. They're not permitted in agricultural or rural residential areas. We have an amendment that we're working on that is related to the Rose Hill decision. This may not be something that you're familiar with, but it was a court case where folks who had unhosted rentals on agricultural land and did not get a permit to have a transient foundation rental sued the county. The Rose Hill decision was just decided by the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago, and basically what it said was that in farm dwellings, they're not allowed to have a transient foundation. Actually, I should put that for the HRS, just a moment, like the Hawaii Revised statute says that a farm dwelling, dwelling on agricultural land is for the purpose of housing a family that either works on the farm or gets their income from agricultural activities. So Bill 121 has always maintained that you can't have temporary transient accommodation rental in an additional farm dwelling, because when you get a permit for that, you sign a recorded agreement that said, I'm only going to use this for farm workers because of that state law. My interpretation of the HRS has been, if you are a farmer and you live in the house, you satisfy the requirement of that state law that says there's somebody living in the house that does that agricultural activity. So if you rent out a room or two, in addition, that's okay. There are other people that are reading the Rose Hill decision and saying it means no transient accommodation rentals in any ag zone. Okay. So that is kind of up in the air right now. For those of you who are farmers in the room, who understand, and I think you mentioned this, that having some tourism activity is important for our farmers to be able to make ends meet. It is going to become important for you to testify before the council and say that, because like I said, I think it is a way to make ag work here, but some of my colleagues do not. And what I think is going to happen if we say no TARs in the ag land at all, we're going to fast track ourselves to gentrification, because all of you folks that get some income out of tourism for your farm, you're just going to go in it, right? So I don't want to see that happen. So that amendment, there's some other amendments around the bill out there. 122, the partner bill would sunset the bed and breakfast program, so it's a special use permit. It runs with the land. Transient accommodations don't run with the land, they run with the people. There seems to be a lot of desire to keep the bed and breakfast, even though it's only nominal. It's only different in the name, right? It's a bed and breakfast, but it's a TAR. They're like the same thing, just with a different name. And yet there's a lot of nostalgia for a bed and breakfast. They're not even required to actually serve breakfast, which a lot of people think is what makes them different, and it's not. So what we're looking at doing is actually just keeping the bed and breakfast, but keeping all the language the same and making sure that they're operating by the same standards as the TAR. So that's what we're looking at with 122. Again, also in committee with 121. Now, the third bill, 123, is the accessory dwelling unit bill. And that we did pass, that was signed by the mayor 2 days ago. That is, it allows by right up to 4 dwellings on a property. Doesn't mean that any property out there is from 4 dwellings, right away. There's some conditions. One, you've got to have wastewater for those 4 dwellings. You gotta have water for those 4 dwellings. There are some setback requirements for those 4 dwellings. They do have to be a certain size. They can't be any bigger than 1,250 square feet, which is a 3-bedroom house. Like, that's very reasonable. And the most important one, you're gonna listen to this time, to the talk. The most important thing is that on state land use ag, accessory dwelling units are considered additional farmlands. And so the state law that I mentioned before, 205, which says it has to be used for farm workers, still applies. So if it's on agricultural land, you cannot use it as a transient accommodation rental because it is an additional farmland. Bill 123 does not change that. It's still the law doesn't say that, yes. But what if, like you said, what if they come in for 2 farmland? But it's only for a duration. Farm workers are excluded. So, there are exclusions from what is considered a transient accommodation. So if it's somebody that gets, housing in exchange for labor, if it's farm workers, if it's, medical workers, what is it called? If it's military personnel, if it's a student, none of those they're not considered transients per se, so it's not a TAR by the county's definition.
Quick question, is there a difference then between renting it to somebody that's working on the farm in part and work trading? Or they just have.
As long as they're associated with the farm activities on the farm, then that is an exemption. And it's kind of tricky to find, look at the definitions section and see what the definition of a transient is, and you'll say it excludes farm workers as a transient. So they would not, you would have to register as a transient if that is the only type of people you ever plan to rent to. Now, if you did plan to rent to somebody else short term, you should probably just register. Right? Who's not a, if you plan to rent to somebody else,
Register with the planning department.
it will be a registration process for the planning department.
What's the differentiation between just renting a room and actually having a structure?
So, you are allowed to rent a room in your primary dwelling, or rooms, plural. You're allowed to rent 1 accessory dwelling unit, and I'll explain that in a minute too. You're allowed to rent something that's called a detached bedroom. So if you have a room without a kitchen in it, that's within 50 feet of a house, it's considered a detached bedroom. It's like just part of the house. Or a guest house, which is permitted 500 square feet or less, no kitchen. So any of those can be used as a transient rental. So on ag, you can build guest houses, or you can build a guest house. That would be permissible as a transient accommodation. The reason, the reason we allowed 1 ADU, so you're allowed on your building site, you're allowed 1 ADU. So or 1 transient accommodation rental. The reason we allowed 1 ADU is to be a TAR is you can redesignate which dwelling is your ADU and which dwelling is your TAR. So say I'm in building A, this is my primary house. I build the ADU and I want to rent that as a TAR. Okay, all I need to do is say, I'm living in the ADU and now that's the primary dwelling and you can use it as a TAR. So we decided to just be upfront about it instead of having people go through and swap what is, which is what. We said you get 1. Pick which building you want it in, and you get 1, because they're gonna get 1 in there.
Heather, thanks for those explanations.
Yeah.
Help verify something for me. I was under the impression that even if any area of the zone, like important ag land, will not be, whether it's an additional ag land or not, will not be able to activate, the transient accommodation. Is that true?
So according to the state law, 205, yes, any additional farm dwelling has to be used for agricultural workers. People tied to agriculture.
We're not permitted.
That, so I believe that what since 205 reads this way, it says, a farm dwelling must be used for a family that is engaged in agricultural activities or gets their income from agricultural activities. So my interpretation is, if you live in that first farm dwelling, you have satisfied that requirement of the HRS. And sure, you can go ahead and rent a room or two. That is my interpretation.
Okay, so that's upward grass, the Rose Hill house.
The Rose Hill,
How's that gonna move forward?
well, probably what's gonna happen is the council will have a briefing from Corporation Council, which is gonna say, there's no real one way to interpret the,
Sure.
the outcome, and you guys fight it out. And like I said, that's why I said it's so important to come and testify, to say that, having a room or two to rent in your farm dwelling should be okay, because that's how people make ends meet, because I gotta convince the rest of my colleagues on the board that that makes sense. Okay. Yeah,
Can I read that bill on the county council website?
yeah, it's Bill 121.4, we're on.
What makes the county council believe that they have the right to tell people what to do with their property? You can and can't.
We're given the authority by the state constitution and the federal constitution to determine the use of land. That's what the zoning code is. It allows certain invested rights in the land. And when you purchase that land, you should check what the zoning is and see what capabilities you have on that property.
So you guys are gonna be able just to tell people what to do with their property, always like this.
That's how the zoning code works. That's how the zoning code
This
works.
is not,
Sorry, that's how the zoning code works. Yeah. The county is invested through chapter 46 of the HRS, the state constitution, to determine the acceptable property uses within different zones. And that right is invested through the state, through the federal
it's
constitution.
an invasion of privacy.
Nope.
Actually, it is an invasion of privacy. When you're telling somebody what to do with their property, where are you staying? Where are you staying? That's an invasion.
I would encourage you, if you feel that way, to sue us and try it. I know.
Yeah, I just feel like, for those of us who live in these developments, we don't want somebody building a big hotel right next to where they want to have their property. Or,
Oh, that's different. When you're not, you're saying, I'm in a house, I have 2 rooms and I'm gonna rent over here, but let me tell you where I'm staying in my location.
You're not required to do that. That's not a requirement. We said that there are uses that you're allowed based on the zoning.
And that's what I think that zoning is like.
Where you live in your house, that is not part of the bill.
What it sounds like.
Well, you should read it before you make a decision.
Thank you. Anyone else on the committee have any questions for her on that?
No, thank you. Okay, if I may, I did want to speak to 181. Yeah, so, in the last hearing that we had on it, the council or the corporation council had done quite a bit of due diligence on the legislative history from the previous general plan. It is her belief, as it is mine, that we have, the council now, without 181, the ability to amend the general plan when it comes to us after going to the planning commission. The only thing is that if we make a substantive amendment, we have to send that amendment back to the planning commission. So we can make editorial changes, but if there's anything substantive, we have to send it back to the planning commissions for review, which I think is appropriate. So what I'm working towards is some sort of document between corporation council, myself as the chair of the council, and the planning director that says we all agree that when it comes to us, we have that authority. Because we need to legislate it through 181, although we will continue to move forward with 181. So when the next general plan comes forward, that will be
referred to as the process. Does that make sense? So the
Yes.
determination is we have the ability to amend it. We're just figuring out how to document that.
I think the opinion of the corporation council has, I suppose, matured
It has.
over the space of the last month or.
Yeah.
tonight's-
No, she found some archival recordings of the hearings that the council had and the planning commission had at the time where the process was put into the general plan. And it was able to determine from that what the intent was. And the intent wasn't to restrict a future council from being able to amend the plan.
With substantive.
With substantive amendments.
And then the process of that going back to the commission, it doesn't go back to the planning department, it goes back to the commission.
It would go to the commission through the planning department. So what would happen, so what will happen is we'll get the general plan, we'll review it, we'll submit as a resolution amendments that we want considered. That will go to the director to make a report, that will go to the planning commission to, say yes or no. And then it'll come back to us and then we can adopt any of them. So even if the planning commission says, oh, we don't like that one, if it comes back to the council and we say, well, we think you're wrong, it's a good idea, we'll still have that ability to amend. So the planning commission has an advisory role, but it does go back to them and, there's gotta be deference to the whole process, right? So it shouldn't, you've got a wonderful council right now, some of the people in this room might object, but you do have a good council that's thoughtful. You can't always count on that. You want some sort of check and balance with something as important as the general plan. So requiring us to send substantive amendments back, I think is the right thing to do.
So when it comes back to the council, after review, a proposed amendment, or a whole set of proposed amendments comes back to the council after commission review. Will the council at that point be able to vote only yes or no on the entire general plan, or will they be able to vote on each of the amendments?
We'll be able to vote on each of the amendments.
On each amendment?
Yeah, so we'll propose the amendment, send it by resolution, get the feedback from the planning commission, and then it'll come back to council and we can vote on it like we're amending any other bill. It'll be, item by item, or as a whole, we can say, we want to adopt the whole set of them.
Ultimately, you will have to vote on it as a whole.
And then ultimately, we have to vote on it as a whole.
I see.
So we do have authority to do it.
Very interesting.
Yes, it is. Let me make one last comment. We did talk last time about the agricultural taxes. I know some of you brought that up today. I encourage you to go to the Hawaii County Real Property Tax website, look at the frequently asked questions, and download the fillable farm plan form. There's a lot of misinformation out there about how it works. And between those two documents, I think it will be clear that the entire intention of the agricultural bills is to provide benefits to people who are legitimately farming, whether they're selling it or they're doing a bartering or they're sharing, and not give benefits to folks that are just having a pet cow in their backyard. Like, that is the distinction. Please read those documents, because I, again, still heard stuff tonight that's like, well, that's not really what it says. So, I hope those two things will fit.
Yeah, it's clear, the existing designated farm, you don't have to change anything, you still need to fill out that.
If you're in the non-dedicated ag program by 2026, September, it wasn't it wasn't a couple weeks ago, 2 months ago, it's 2 years from now, you have to pick some other program.
But if you're already in the.
If you're in the already 10-year dedicated program, there's nothing you have to do. You were done.
And one other question on Bill 184.
Yeah.
There isn't a process for the CDP committees to make amendments to the plan in the interim period, is there?
No, you guys don't have any authority to make an arrest.
Yeah.
You're-
The public does.
What?
The public does that, right?
The public has the right to propose amendments, and the way you do that is either through your planning commissioner or the council, and
Or your CDP.
Or you guys can elevate it up, but I will say that the testimony, whatever from the CDP is as valid as testimony from any given individual, so. If you have a proposed amendment, I would either bring it to me
Then you can.
or suggest it to, the planning commissioner, which is actually vacant for this district right now. So those of you that wanted to get more involved, put your name in for being on the planning commission. That is actually a position that does have the authority, so
Are they advisory or they are? They're.
they have authority to, you know, recommend against, special management area permits and, you know, they're advisory in some conditions, they're ministerial in others, yeah. But they do have, sorry guys, more important, more 30, but maybe you want to graduate, maybe you want to graduate as a planning commission.
She have to quit this one.
Like way over here on this part. Okay.
You can ask me.
Sure did.
Okay, any other questions on
The bills.
the bills? No? Okay, thank you.
One more important one to think through, and I forgot the bill number. You like this one, Eric? No building permits required for agricultural buildings, 1,000 square feet or less. No building permits required for improvements, $25,000 or less. It used to be 7,500, so.
Now we're doing 25.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big one. Oh, 212 bill number. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. We have a second. I know. Second.
I tried,
Okay, the motion is approved, approve the minutes. Okay,
I try.
well, yeah, I'm getting late.
Yeah.
Is there any proposed new business? with the agenda? If not,
Yeah.
myself will go down, hang on with the next
I think it's, I want to say it's the 7th, but I don't want to be wrong.
Thank you, Heather.
For, yeah.
Yeah.
Contact,
Or do you want to join?
Yep, it's the 7th. I made a mistake. Because of the general election, the committee meeting in November is on the 7th, which is the Thursday rather than the Tuesday. Everything's shifted to 2 days. That's the next hearing for 121, the
So we could.
I'm not completely together.
yeah, it's, you know, Heather?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Can you find out the status of what's happening on Connor Road?
Yeah, Therese just sent out a memo today about it. I don't recall. I was in the cross traffic. I only had a second to look at it. Obviously not you. So I will.
I asked for a status update on Connor Road. Get up to Becky T-Bone City Road. Yeah, we saw, surveyors out there and water lines in the right of way, which, the people on that side have a lot of their own private water lines, so
Yeah.
they're concerned about,
I can tell you that the paving is still going ahead. On the,
paving on the other side, but not an expansion of.
no, it's just the other side of Broke Bridge will be paved. But they were having some logistical problems because obviously they gotta get the material across the bridge. Yeah, I know, so. Carry it back.
When's our next tentative for? Oh, no, I won't. November 13th.
Okay, actually, I will try to, put together a presentation for the co-center that, Richard and I. And I've done some work on, so I'll try to do that next time. And, Want to thank, Richard Heidelman for his time and dedication to the Hāmākua CDP Action Committee. And they, you know, somebody needs to fill in for him and the other 4 people, so.
The baby's or.
Yeah, a message from.
Some of those are really pretty fun. Did April, she left already?
Let me address the CDP staff. Hello. You know, if you are a neighbor, look at avocado tree, you can, hey, sister. Choke avocado. But, when all fall down. And you got a neighbor that says, hey, you know, Marco will catch more, man. But I put it in the freezer. I have friends like that, and I'm sure you have friends like that, right? Only the ear come full. Let me tell you again, staff, thank you so much, because you hear a lot of crap from us. You know, but you are so talented, look at you. And we really appreciate that for 1 year. But on the other side, you have bosses and you're planning department, right? It's the other year. So you got nowhere to go. Again, none of the members here have really, I've never told them what I'm going to do tonight, with something positive. Again, to thank you all for all your efforts. You know, animal avocados will give you an animal more. So, but I will do one thing. I always preach about Malcolm McCann. You know, the thought is there. You think about it, we think. But again, I complained tonight that governance, defense stuff from happening there, but you act like this. You are a cow farmer. You're not gonna take all the water, right? You're gonna let it go so my neighbor will get food. So today, I hope you have, I've never been to your office, but today I want to present you something that at least make you eye full, not to ear.
You guys gotta get up and repeat it.
Oh, they're looking at us.
Please put in your office, so when you come to work, at least we don't go to you, but please tolerate us, but again, at least we hide to get us. You're welcome. Great job. Nice.
Okay, we have a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion for adjourn.
Everybody vote aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Even if we didn't smile the whole time we were here, you know. Yeah.
A lot of it is great. Yeah. It is. And the thing about the alien with the rights, eventually.
Oh, well.
People got.